Good morning, Richard here and welcome to today's video. Last time out I did an amazing, beautifully crafted cinematic marvel of a video all about aperture and depth of field. Well, today I am going to replicate that with another amazing blockbuster, but this time I'm really going to push the boat out and make sure this video is... Okay, I lied. The video was not a cinematic marvel and this one probably won't be a blockbuster, but I do hope it provides a little value. And today we are going to be talking all about shutter speed. So smooth silky waters or frozen in time water drops, motion blur or freezing the action. But to achieve these you need to pick the right shutter speed. Now, shutter speed is the length of time the sensor is exposed to light and essentially how long the actual picture is taken for. So if the shutter speed is open for a 60th of a second, it takes a picture for a 60th of a second, and then it's going to capture everything in that time, from say a tennis ball entering the frame to it leaving the frame. However, if the shutter is only open for say a 2000th of a second, which is a lot less time, that tennis ball doesn't have time to travel and the camera freezes it where it captures it. Now, to totally control your shutter speed, you do need to be the best setting on your camera. It's either shutter priority or of course full manual mode. Now, shutter priority is normally indicated by a T or a TV, which is time value. And what this means is that you can fix your shutter speed to whatever you need to achieve that desired effect, whether it be 1 second or a 2000th of a second. Now, as mentioned, that affects the amount of light hitting the sensor, so adjustments will be needed elsewhere. If you need to increase the shutter speed to freeze the action, you may need to adjust something else to maintain that correct level of exposure. Perhaps you'll need to open up the aperture to let in more light or to increase the ISO sensitivity. One of those two will work. Here, for example, we have a good exposure, 60th of a second, but as we've seen, this doesn't freeze the tennis ball. So to get that tennis ball with no motion blur, I need to increase the shutter speed to say a 2000th of a second. What you have to note though is that we are now restricting the amount of light that hits the sensor, so we need to compensate for this somewhere else. That could be in a couple of places. We can open up the aperture and make that hole bigger and let more light in. But in this example, I am already at f2.8, which is the widest aperture or the biggest hole I have for this lens. So my only alternative, without using other lights, is to increase the ISO. Now that will bring the exposure back level, meaning we can use that 2000th of a second, freeze that tennis ball, and we get the picture that we set out to get in the first place. Now shutter speed is pretty straightforward when you think about it. The bigger the number, i.e. 2000, 1000th, blah blah blah, that will freeze a moving subject, and the smaller the number, a 60th of a second, something like that, may not, depending on how fast the subject is. Most cameras have a range of something like 4000th of a second, 8000 in higher end cameras, and go down to something like a 30th of a second, which means that the shutter is open for half a minute. Something like this you usually use for streamy seascapes or for nighttime photography to get those star trails, something like that. You also have the option of a bulb setting where you determine how long the shutter is open for. You press the shutter button down to start the exposure or to open the shutter, and you release the shutter to close the shutter and stop the exposure. Now, touching the actual camera while it's doing that is not a good idea. It brings up a whole nother issue with camera shake, and using a remote release will cure that, but we'll go into that into another video. So that is basically it. That is how I explain shutter speed. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for watching. Please leave me a comment down below if you want to add anything, and please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you're not already. And I think the only thing left for me to do is to say thank you for watching. I'll see you next time, and I'll leave you with a few examples of some photos I've taken using a slower shutter speed. See you next time.